All right, it's March the 6th. We're having a 20-minute recess. We're doing our best to recall about 2 hours worth of testimony, and here goes. I need to say at the beginning, we're not allowed to take notes. You guys should know that by now, so we're having to do everything from memory, from the best recollection, when we run out to the truck during recess. The first thing I remember is I was the first person in the courtroom this morning. I had continued to ask repeatedly to enter the courtroom as 8 o'clock was approaching, because I wanted to be in the courtroom as the proceedings started, so I didn't even miss 1 minute of it. And I was not allowed until 8 o'clock. Do they want to get in? We got some other brothers that are in here. Let's stand by the truck if y'all want to do that. Y'all want to get in? Yeah. Yeah, get in. We're going to do this in one take. Yeah, and get in and feel free to listen to what I'm saying. All right, so we are recording, and I'm going to keep talking. We got some other brothers in here, and that we're in the courtroom as well. And we want to get everybody's memory in the time that we have. Okay, so as I was stating, I was the first person in the courtroom. I kept repeatedly trying to get in before 8 o'clock. They denied me, they denied me, they denied me. I think right at 8 o'clock, they allowed me to enter into the door of the courtroom. And then at that point, I had to take off my belt and my shoes and my glasses and put my Bible and my jacket and all that stuff. By the time you put your shoes back on, you get in the elevator and you get upstairs. It was about 5 minutes, and the proceedings had already started. The point I'm trying to make, guys, is that they had 5 minutes worth of secret proceedings that nobody from the public could even possibly attend. It would be much better to have the public allowed to be entered in the courtroom so that everything is public, right? But the way they've got this thing going down here in Pensacola is they're having 5 minutes worth of secret proceedings. I had a huge problem with that because I don't want to miss even 5 minutes of the trial where they say things that the public cannot hear, and I think that was very inappropriate. The next thing is regarding the order. She said something like, at what point does challenging a lawful order become disobedience to an order? In other words, from Ken Hovind's perspective, he's lawfully challenging an order, but from her perspective, he's being disobedient to an order. 50D, I've got an acronym in my head, guys, and I'm trying to go through the acronym.
She also stated that
yes,
the jury would make that decision.
That's right. She said the jury would make that decision. That's right. And also, there was discussion from the defense counsel and the judge about what defenses will be allowed. In other words, the judge is telling Chris Klotz and Thomas Keith, well, that defense will not be allowed. An example would be if Ken Hovind knew that the order was illegal. I mean, if Ken Hovind believed that the order to not challenge the property, if he believed that the order was illegal or not valid, that would not be able to be used as a defense. In other words, she's telling the defense what you can lawfully use as a defense and what you can't use as a defense. I wouldn't even say lawfully, it's just her opinion. She's like structuring their ability to fight this. I thought that was very inappropriate as well. The F, I want to get this out about the flag. The flag inside the courtroom absolutely has gold fringe all around it. Admiralty, military, rural. She's commander of the ship.
And it
right?
has a gold tassel.
It has a gold tassel.
Hanging down from the
pole at the top. The flag outside the courtroom, it don't have no gold fringe. Now, isn't that interesting, guys, that the flag outside the courtroom don't have no gold fringe, but the flag inside the courtroom has gold fringe? There's something very peculiar about that. This gold tassel, I think, is common to both flags. My friend Gerald said he noticed a gold tassel on the flag outside the courtroom. Is that true?
I believe that's correct, but I will confirm.
We will confirm that.
For the next
right, but there's a difference between the gold fringe and the gold tassel that hangs down from the top. I don't know if there's any significance to the tassel, but there is no gold fringe on the flag outside the courtroom. What else? 50.
A gold fringe indicates it's an admiralty flag or maritime flag.
Yeah.
And that it's like you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. And
that the captain's word is law.
Right. In other words, there's no Constitution allowed in the courtroom.
There's a suspension of the United States Constitution.
There's a suspension of the United States Constitution when you have that gold fringe. You guys need to look that up and research that on your own. The next thing is Scott Snyder. Man, he's brought up after every witness. Man, it's absolutely insane how Scott Snyder's sitting at that prosecution table and they bring him up after every witness to drive home whatever point they're trying to drive home, which is mostly irrelevant. But anyway, Scott Snyder gave some testimony. It's always useless. They brought in this guy named Anthony Jaworski, and I want to be very particular in the words that I use in describing him. But in my whole life experience, I'm approaching 50 years old, guys. I met very few people like Anthony. I mean, I'm trying to think of I don't know if the word is elderly. He seemed like almost disoriented at times, but when he was asked questions by Tiffany, he had very articulate answers like almost they were memorized. And I don't want to say he's faking it. I don't want to say that. But there's just something very particular and peculiar about his demeanor. And I don't know how to put it in words. I've never met anybody quite like him before. You know, I don't want to slander him because he may have a medical condition or something, but he's got a very unique demeanor, and I don't know how to describe it. He walked very slow as an elderly man. When he sat down, you could tell it was painful for him to sit down. When he stood up, it was painful for him to stand up. He said that he spent his entire life savings in buying that property. You know, he said that he spent everything he got, his Social Security check, all of his savings, and that he sunk his entire $100,000 into buying that property. And it was almost as a attempt to withdraw sympathy from the jury that this poor man has been caught up in this mess, you know. And I don't know, that whole testimony just seemed very odd to me. I don't know how to put it in words, but anyway, you know, they did show a letter from Ken Hovind saying that he was sorry. You know, Ken Hovind was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Anthony Jaworski, that you've got caught up in all this.
And that the government tricked you.
And that the government has tricked you, right? And so there was an apologetic letter from Mr. Hovind saying, we're sorry that the government tricked you. You've got caught up in all this and that you've spent this $100,000 on the property. There was a letter from Paul Hansen, had something to do with, you know, you're going to be charged $100 a day and the government's playing up that for anything they can get. Paul Hansen did, I think there was a stipulation that said he did sign the letter. Anything else, guys, about that Anthony Jaworski testimony?
Yes, they asked, the defense asked him if he had purchased title insurance for the property.
Yes, that's right.
And he did not.
He wasn't sure, and then he said, well, I think the government...
then he petitioned a real estate company that was selling for the government and said, you need to get title insurance.
Okay, all right. Yeah, title insurance was an object of discussion, absolutely. And it was a big thing about whether Jaworski was feeling threatened or, you know, they tried to make him out as some sort of victim from Paul Hansen. Not necessarily Ken Hovind, because Ken Hovind's letter was apologetic and also said Ken Hovind was an Eagle Scout. That was just a very, very unique situation in courtroom today when Anthony Jaworski walked in, and his demeanor, and I've just never met it's almost like at times his facial expression would turn awkward, and then he would, like, you know, recover from whatever medical condition he had. And I would never mock him. I don't know what's going on, but there's something just strange. It may be, like I said, it may be a medical condition. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next one. It was S.J., it was Anthony Jaworski. Then they brought Scott Snyder back up again. And Scott Snyder, like every single witness, here comes Scott Snyder again, you know, Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, you know, doing some more impeaching and driving home whatever point they want to drive home. He shouldn't even be allowed in the courtroom right at this point. Yes, sir?
It was also brought out by the defense that Scott Snyder had purchased Mr. Jaworski a $3 hamburger.
And some coffee.
And some coffee and a breakfast roll or something.
Yeah, and that the government had, well, I guess that would come from Scott Snyder, right?
Yeah, he indicated that came out from him personally, and that the government,
yeah,
the IRS did not pay for the
right.
The goodies.
And another point that I want to get out of my head is that, before I forget it, is that all of these witnesses, Tiffany Hope Eggers has had multiple conversations with them to extract their testimony. She's paying for their travel. She's paying for their trip. A lot of this stuff, you know, I don't even think a lot of the defense is contesting. Why is the government spending all this money, bringing witness after witness after witness to say just irrelevant stuff? They're spending a tremendous amount of time, resources, and money bringing in all these witnesses for absolutely nothing. And I'm hoping that's becoming very, very clear to the jury. So after Scott Snyder, it was S, Scott Snyder, Anthony Jaworski, Scott Snyder. Then they bring in T, which was Timothy Bruin or something. He was a Bureau of Prisons guy. He's the guy who walked into Ken Hovin's cell and found some paperwork at the instruction of IRS. See, what's happening is IRS Scott Snyder is asking all these prison guys, you know, prison employees, you go search Ken Hovin's stuff. Right, and you go through all this paperwork and you look for anything regarding Liz Pendants, you look for anything regarding property. And so, you know, these prison, I don't say guards, but these prison investigations guys are like, they're alerted, like, oh, pay particular close attention but to this terrible guy, Ken Hovind, and let's make sure he's given special attention by the guards because he's been known by he's been targeted by the IRS. That was Timothy. Timothy has been sitting here since he started to come out here Tuesday. He's been all the way out here since Tuesday, and he didn't say anything relevant. And Chris Klotz kind of made that point a little bit.
They brought him. I guess they flew him in on Tuesday from Berlin, New Hampshire.
Yep.
And he's been well, he arrived on Wednesday due to some airplane delay. But he's been sitting here since Wednesday, and today is Friday morning. They're just now getting to him. So the defense kind of brought out the fact that they brought him in way too early, wasted money, putting him up in a motel.
Yeah, and the only thing he testified of any relevance is, I walked into Kent's court and found this document. That's all you got to say, and you've been sitting here 4 days or 3 days? Absolutely crazy.
And let me say this, that the IRS specifically, it wasn't a random search that he did of Ken Hovind's cell.
Right.
He was instructed by Special Agent Scott Snyder to go to Ken Hovind's cell and look for specific letters that mention things such as property, or les pendants. He gave them keywords to look for. Right,
and so I remember Ken Hovind saying all his paperwork weighs over 100 pounds, right? And Ken Hovind has this huge amount of paperwork that he's had to keep with him in the cell, like for the past 8 years. And if I recall, he said it weighs a whole lot of weight. So imagine like you're this Bureau of Prisons guy, and you're like already got a government job, and somebody from the IRS comes up, and you go search Ken Hovind's stuff, and you're gonna like be. What's the word? When somebody, no, not intimidated, but also incentivized. Yeah. Incentivized as if you're some dog who's sent out on a journey to get a bone, and you found your bone because you found a piece of paper with the right keywords on it, and you're going to deliver it to your master IRS agent. Look, master, I found a piece of paper that's got an address on it. So we need to get back in the courtroom. Let's finish this up. SJS, it was Timothy Cathy. They brought in Cathy. What was special about Cathy, guys? I'm having a brain.
She was from Santa Rosa County Jail.
She was from, what was her testimony all about? Something about a fake letter? No, that was Anthony. Oh, I forgot.
The color copy.
Yeah, there's something about the prison only has black and white copies, but this was a color copy. But I'm not sure what the point was on that issue. We need to understand that.
They also had contacted her specifically asking her to go through his mail.
Yes.
And call out certain things that they could use against Ken Hovind.
Oh, that she was a call screener, right? She was like listening to the calls, I believe, responsible for monitoring the visitation calls. And imagine like being paid money, full-time job, to like listen to prisoners' private phone calls all the time. I can't imagine getting paid. But anyway, let me share another fact that I forgot about Anthony Jaworski. He wrote a letter. When Ken Hovind wrote him a letter, Anthony Jaworski wrote a note at the top of it, and it said, this something, there was a word that was hard to read, and then this something letter. The word that was hard to read was fake, right? But when the defense counsel asked IRS agent Scott Snyder, what is that word? Can you read it to us? And Scott said, well, I can make out that the first letter is F, but I can't read. The reason that's important is it was a fake. From Anthony Jaworski's perspective, he didn't even think the Ken Hovind letter was a real letter. He thought it was a fake letter. There's no way he could have been intimidated or put out. Because, you know, I remember there was a point made when they asked Anthony Jaworski, did you think this letter was fake? And he said, yeah, I thought it was fake. And then he said something like, did you act upon it as if it was real? And he said, yeah, I acted upon it if it was real. But when he wrote about it, he said it was a fake letter. It's like, why would you act upon it if you thought it was a real letter, but then you wrote that it was a fake letter? There's something that was a controversy in Jaworski's testimony.
The lawsuit was before Kent's letter.
That's right. That's right. The counterclaim from, or whatever.
He filed a civil lawsuit.
Yeah. Okay. When Jaworski filed the civil lawsuit, that was even before Kent's letter. So that point was made out big time. And so the Kent's letter could have had nothing to do.
Was not threatening
or intimidating to Anthony Jaworski at all.
It killed it.
That was a good point that was made. After Cathy, which was they played all these phone things, and of course Cathy is another government official that IRS agent Scott Snyder has directed. Listen to every single phone call, and if you hear anything about Liz pendants or property, you let me know immediately. And so she's like going through all of Kent's stuff, and he has no privacy whatsoever. I told you guys that already a million times. Hopefully you guys understand. For the last 8 years, every word Kent says, every letter he writes, is screened and monitored for anything that can be used against him. Imagine somebody running around with a microphone with your life. Why don't we run around with a microphone and listen to everything Judge Margaret Casey Rogers says, that Tiffany Hope Egger says, and that this IRS agent Scott Snyder says? I'd like to follow them around with a microphone and monitor all their letters. That was Cathy. I can't remember who came after Cathy, guys. SJSTK. It was Timothy, Cathy. Did Scott Snyder come back up, or they bring any other witnesses? They brought Scott Snyder back up. Of course, Scott Snyder's...
And began to play the phone segments.
They played the phone segments. Any other points regarding Scott Snyder's latest testimony? I mean, it's really difficult, guys, to sit there and not take notes and to remember all the high points.
I believe that completes it.
Okay, they played anything from the voice calls. Oh, the voice calls. Kent's talking to his son, Eric. Kent's talking to unnamed males. And Kent's talking about mailing this Les pendants. Well, you can talk about mailing a Les pendants and not necessarily using the United States Post Office. You can talk about mailing it as if mailing is a synonym for delivering it, but Kent, you know, he's just talking about it. So what? You know, we're talking about, let's back up a little bit here, guys, and let's just take a bigger picture on what's going on. We're talking about mailing a letter, right? And we've had all of these days of testimony, all these witnesses flying in, all this money being spent, and it boils down to mailing a letter? Are you kidding me? Anything else?
And one thing, one of the letters, or I believe it was one of the letters from Kent, brought out that mail fraud equals 20 years.
Oh, that's right.
I'm surprised they let the jury hear that.
That's right. They did hear that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, one of the letters they read did say that mail fraud carries 20 years, which the jury got to hear.
And he was instructed, and I believe it was a letter to his son-in-law and his daughter.
Yes.
He was instructed the son-in-law to be careful.
Right.
How he answers them, and he can always say, I don't recall.
That's a good point. I think it was Timothy Dublin and maybe his daughter Marlissa. I could be wrong about that, but there was a letter where Ken Hovind was writing a message to somebody, and he was reminding them about, there was a big difference between I don't recall and I don't know. And he was saying, it's, you know, from a legal perspective, it's better to say I don't recall. Now, they're playing this up as like Ken is trying to be deceptive.
That's what Bill Clinton used.
That's what Bill Clinton used, right? That's what Bill Clinton used. He said, I don't recall, and he knew he was protecting himself legally. But let me share this with you guys, right? Let's just be realistic, right? The government's been coming after you. You've been in prison. Is it not natural to talk to people about the proper way to get on a witness stand and talk? Whether you just, it's natural to say. It's like if I'm gonna be talking to a friend and I know that I don't recall is a better way to phrase something. It's not. Hey, buddy, just say I don't recall. They're trying to make it out as Ken is trying to be deceptive and trickery, but it's just natural to talk to somebody and tell them the best way to word things. All right, that's all I got, guys. We're gonna go back in, but so we don't miss any more. God bless you guys. Please pray for Ken Hovind. Please pray that God gets the glory and works a mighty miracle. And that's our update for the 20-minute recess and the morning recess. We still are coming up on lunch. All right, let me close it down. 3 ones, and hit the stop button.